So I think we'll continue on with the people's business today. Madam Clerk, do you mind reading the roll, please?
Certainly. Good afternoon. Mr. Taylor? Here. Ms. Herbert? Here. Dr. Bustles?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Present.
Mr. McDowell? Yes. Mr. Duval? Present. Mayor Rickaman?
I am here. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor Pro Tem, would you mind giving us a little word of prayer here before we begin doing the people's business?
Passing over. Hallelujah. In the midst of this inclement day, we simply say thank you for life, health, and the beauty of our city. We ask, Lord, that you might bless us collectively and individually. Allow us to sense and to feel your presence in our lives and in the fabric of this city. We ask it, we claim it in your name. Amen.
Amen. Move to adopt the agenda with 4 changes. Mr. Duval, would you mind?
Mr. Mayor, we'll ask to adopt the agenda with the following additions or changes. Defer item 2, which is the Public Safety Telecommunication Week proclamation. Defer item 3, which is the National Community Development Week, Columbia Fair Housing Month, and National Financial Literacy Month proclamations. Amend item 1, approval of minutes, to include additional remarks regarding the priority zero-based budgeting discussions. Refer to item 28 in the March 15, 2022 meeting minutes. Amend item 31 to change event date from October 8 to October 1.
Mr. Duval and Mayor Rickaman, if I might ask, could you, rather than amending item 1, could we simply hold the minutes for this time, please, sir? Hold the meeting minutes. We wanted to defer that into the next meeting. If you don't mind, can we defer item 1?
Instead of amending it, just hold that.
Yes, sir. Just defer it to the next time. Thank you.
Approval of minutes will be held.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, concerns, questions? Not seeing any or hearing any. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. That takes us to City Council discussion and action item number 4, the Home Investment Partnership American Rescue Plan, Home ARP Allocation Plan, final draft. Ms. Gloria Saeed, Community Development Director. If you recall, yes, sir.
We had public input on any agenda item that's ahead
Oh,
of this.
thank you, Mayor. Absolutely. We would love to ask if there are any citizens present or anyone who may have public input on the agenda items as outlined.
Is there anybody here that wants to speak for, against, or make comment on any item that is on our agenda? There will also be a place at the end of the agenda for any general public input, comments, observations, questions, suggestions, donations. Ms. Wiley? Item 12, you're welcome to come forward and speak on that, ma'am. I'm sorry.
This is on the agenda.
If you want to talk about item 12, go ahead, why, but before, if you,
It's on consent agenda and it's her ditch.
yeah.
It's on the consent agenda.
Good afternoon,
I
Ms.
just want to come
Wiley.
up here and say thank you for considering our neighborhood. I want to say thank you to you, Ms. Teresa, and your clerk, and especially you, Mayor. I really want to thank you. You, Mr. McDowell, I want to thank you, and you, and all the new ones, thank you for doing well. You know, I'm not fussing, I have humbled down really good. All I want y'all to do is come to my neighborhood for y'all meeting one time. Please, they're open on Beltline, they open this month. So give me a date so you can talk to the neighborhood. But I thank you very much. So I'm ready to come back to Columbia,
Come on.
you know. I'm
We want to
ups-
see you every day, not just every other Tuesday.
I'm upset in Bishopville too. I got a meeting with them on the 19th. I have to take my own garbage out. I go 7 miles to the grocery store. You know, it's ridiculous. I feel like I'm in a twilight zone. It wasn't like that when I was a child. But I want to thank you. I'm very passionate about my neighborhood. Mr. McDowell know that. I calls him every day,
Yes, ma'am.
every day.
You should call him twice a day.
And I'm gonna call the city at large. I need to be on a committee to keep me out of trouble. I really do. You know, I really do. That's what keeps me going. But I want to thank you. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley.
And I had to ask, stand up. I had to ask him what number 12 was, because I wasn't really sure. I didn't know whether I had to argue or just be nice, you know? But y'all don't know, it hurts my heart when, you know, you done been out of place so long. I went by there today, the water just going up under the house, you know?
Distance makes the heart grow fonder, they
Yeah,
say, right?
yeah. But I want to thank you. And anything you want me to do, let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley.
Another thing I need to say. I cannot do rebuilding house. It's got to be rebuilt, not remodeled. Because if you go out there right now, the water going in my porch, going into the front yard, you know, the front door. That's how bad it is.
Yes, ma'am. Do we have anybody else who wanted to speak on an agenda item? I think,
Sir, we have 3 brief voice messages related to the gun repeal ordinance.
yes, ma'am.
Civic Club. I am calling in regards to the repeal of gun ordinances in Columbia, and I stand with holding off on removing them until you have something redrafting the laws that can withstand any legal challenges. Please help invest in our community so that gun violence is eliminated. We here in Greenview need your support in stand safe. Thank you, and have a good day. Be blessed.
Hello, this is Bernita Moultrie here in Columbia in the Greenview community. I'm calling in reference to ordinance number 2019-046 in reference to repealing the gun ordinance. I am in favor of the ordinance remaining in place on the books until City Council can come up with a better or stronger solution that is workable in favor of our school children and in favor of the citizens of our community. So please allow the ordinance 2019-046 to remain in place as you all are working on a better ordinance for the protection of our school children. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Yes, greetings. My name is Jimmy Wright, calling from here in Columbia, South Carolina, and this is in reference to Mayor Rickaman as well as Ms. Tina Herbert. I'm calling to let you know that I support Ordinance 2019-046. This ordinance protects the health and safety of our community, most especially the Greenview community, with the health and safety of our school children. I request that ordinance number 2019-046 not be repealed, but to remain on the books until replaced by a favorable, workable solution to the gun problem. Thank you very much.
This concludes the voicemails, Mayor.
Thank you. We can move forward. If there's anybody else, I don't see anybody or hear anybody. We have no more messages, so with that, we can move on to the presentation.
Yes, our next item is item 4, Home Investment Partnership American Rescue Plan Allocation Plan, final draft. Ms. Gloria Said.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Mayor Rickaman, members of council. Today, what I'm bringing before you is the final draft allocation plan for the city's home ARP funds that we received. As you all know, on March 8th, 2022, during a work session, we presented to you the amount of funds that have been awarded to the city and received feedback from council in terms of where you all would like to see these dollars programmed. And so I do have a short PowerPoint presentation for you, and you should have also received a draft allocation plan that we will submit to HUD upon your approval today. So just to give a little background information, of course, there's a specific process that the city is required to follow in regards to preparing the home ARP allocation plan. And to date, we have completed the following items. We've consulted with agencies and service providers whose clientele include home ARP qualifying populations. We've held stakeholders meetings. We've held a home ARP virtual public hearing on March 23rd. And then we also put out for public comment period for 15 days the required notice, which began on March 13th and ended on March 28th. So here are our next steps. Our next steps are to finalize the draft home ARP allocation plan and to receive council approval today and then submit to HUD for review and approval no later than April 5th, 2022. So just as a reminder, here are a few things that we have budgeted based on input from you. Of course, we're directing funds towards supportive services in the amount of $625,041. We're directing funds to NCS or non-congregate shelters in the amount of $1,656,000. We've also allocated 5% toward nonprofit capacity building and 10% toward administration and planning. And so based on those percentages, it totals the home ARP allocation to the city of $2,500,820. Well, it looks like we're missing a couple of frames there. I'll just talk through those. Some additional information that I did want to share with you is about the non-congregate shelters. What those eligible activities includes acquisition of structures. It can include new construction with or without land acquisition. Also rehabilitation of existing structures such as motels and nursing homes. And of course, we don't know what that is going to be today. We're simply programming those dollars toward NCS activity. And so those things will be determined at a later date once the allocation plan is approved. In addition to that, the funding of $625,041 is being allocated toward supportive services. Now, that can include a number of eligible activities, some of which I will read to you today. Of course, we would look for feedback from council and city leadership in terms of what specifically council wants to focus those dollars on. So some of those supportive activities can include child care, education services, employment assistance and job training, food, housing search and counseling services, legal services, life skills training, mental health services, outpatient health care services, outreach services, substance abuse treatment services, transportation, case management, mediation, credit repair, landlord-tenant liaison, services for special populations, and financial assistance costs. So again, not asking today where you want to direct those items, but you certainly can, think about those. So once this action plan, allocation plan is approved, we'll know what direction you all are asking us to move into in order to come up with a program and guidelines in terms of what services the city would like to cover. So at this particular point, I'm going to ask if you all have any questions before your approval for us to submit this to HUD for approval.
Any questions, Mr. Taylor?
Yes. So the non-congregate shelter, it's hard to say, in this particular instance is defined as one or more buildings that can provide private units or rooms for temporary shelter. It can serve individuals and families that meet one or more of the qualifying populations, and it does not require occupants to sign a lease or occupancy agreement. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? You did? I've got a couple.
Okay, I just have a couple of comments. So first and foremost, I appreciate you providing us an update, and it's great to hear that our community members and providers are on the same page and recognize that both non-congregate housing and those supportive services, particularly around mental health and substance use, are important. And I just wanted to add that for those that may not be familiar, non-congregate housing is an evidence-based practice. It's something that's become vitally important in a time that the pandemic has shown that our folks experiencing homelessness, particularly families that are living in congregate settings, meaning they're sharing a room with other people, puts them at high risk. And so for the city to potentially be able to invest in non-congregate housing is huge in terms of being able to address some of the challenges that we're seeing. One question that I had was, could you just describe a little bit of some of the capacity building activities that you all will be doing to ensure that these dollars are spent well and that we see outcomes, particularly given the timeliness and the urgency of addressing homelessness in the city?
Sure. So like with most of our grants, we provide technical assistance. So in this particular instance, where it relates to supportive services, depending on who our subrecipient is that's most qualified or has the expertise who have run these type programs before, we would be available to provide them with any technical assistance as it relates specifically to the federal guidelines, make sure that they understand what those reporting requirements are. We really work hand in hand with them to make sure that they're also meeting the timelines that's established in the policies and procedures and the programs. So we do work very closely with them, and that's what we call our technical assistance or our capacity building.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So just for my clarification, the nonprofit capacity building, that portion still is funds, that's funds that the city will spend?
Yes.
Not allocated to another agency?
That is correct. So, and it's specifically broken down in the budget that that's the amount that we could spend to provide that particular service.
Okay. And then with respect to developers who do this type of work and have done it possibly successfully, do you think we have enough that would be interested in doing the work? Because I was wondering if TN would be interested in taking on this project, or do we have enough contractors who are out there that apply for it?
That's a very good question. As you know, TN Development Corporation, they are familiar with this type of facility as it relates to SRO, which really is a motel that was converted into permanent housing. So for this particular instance, we don't know if they would be interested or not, but I think what's important for us to do as we work toward putting together this type of project, that we do outreach and that we hold information sessions and get information from various developers or organizations, even nonprofits, who are familiar with this type work to see if it's something that they would be interested in, so that when we put out the NOFA, that we'll get enough interested parties to be successful.
Ms. Said, let me ask you a question of clarity. Under the supportive services, you gave us a list of all of the services that would be related to that $625,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, those new services or existing services, or a combination of both? Would they be?
So that's just a list of eligible services.
Okay.
So we would determine, based on that amount of money, where you want to focus those dollars.
Where even if those areas are listed, is there an opportunity to create perhaps some new vistas in areas?
Some new visitors?
Yeah. What'd you say?
You said new visitors? I'm sorry.
Vistas. Would there be an opportunity to create, in addition to what you listed, would there be an opportunity for us to create new opportunities?
So in other words, one that's not listed here?
That's correct.
I don't know if this is an all-inclusive list, so there could be.
Okay, so it's okay.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to also share, one of the things we have talked about is potentially using these dollars to continue to expand some of our pathways work, because mental illness and substance use is an eligible service. So that's an example of maybe something we could be applying this to.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, that's,
Mr. Brennan, then Reverend.
no, I'm through.
Ms. Said, federal funding brings with it federal oversight that we're using the dollars in an efficient way. Do we have a third-party auditing consultant lined up for when we do make these decisions on how the expenses will be spent, and the proper reporting that comes with that?
We do not. We're still very early on in the process. But honestly, I would think for this program and the amount of money that there is, our on-staff compliance division would be able to provide the monitoring, oversight, and compliance.
And just as we talked about in our work session last week, setting goals, our mission for the funding to make sure we hit those metrics. Are we going to go through that exercise to make sure that we are spending the money and meeting the goals of what the money was to be used for?
Absolutely. We can make sure that those items are put in place and that they're reported on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Said, a couple questions. One is, once this has been approved and submitted to HUD, how long is the return for them to give us an approval of that?
You would ask that question. I believe it's 30 days that we have for them to review and respond. I do know that they want to approve it before our regular annual action plan is submitted for approval.
The second part to that is what's the flexibility or what would be the process if we determined that we really needed to focus more money from the shelters into supportive services or reverse or into something else? What would be the process for that? Or is there the flexibility once we vote on this to make those changes?
Yes, sir. Excellent question. So that process would involve either a non-substantial amendment or a substantial amendment. So with these type programs, if you are to make a change with how the funds have been budgeted, then if it's over $1 million, that will require a substantial amendment. If it's under 1 million, it will be a non-substantial. But to answer your question, it is a possibility. We are able to change in the event that you see you want to put more money in one area than another.
Yeah, and then just my last question is at some point, I remember our discussion, there was more money in supportive services and less in administration and planning. There seems to be a shift in that. Is there a reason that we see something that's unforeseen? I just was curious because when I first reviewed this, the supportive services was roughly about 750. And so it looks like to me there was a shift from supportive services to administrative and planning. So I didn't know if there was something that I wasn't aware of. I just have noticed there's a difference from the two documents that I have in front of me.
I can actually answer that
Yes,
for
ma'am.
you. What was in the prior document for supportive services was actually $500,000. That's what was provided to us on the March 8th meeting. And what we did is we made an adjustment where you have administration and planning. That was at 15%, and so we did make a small adjustment there of 5%, and we placed those dollars into supportive services. So that's actually been an increase from $500,000 to $625,000 with that adjustment.
Okay, so there must be three sets because mine says 750 and 125. So that's what I've been working off. So I was a little confused of where things are and why there was an adjustment.
That's probably an older one. That's probably an older one. So maybe the update did not get placed into MinuteTrack for your
Which
information.
then goes back to my question earlier. Once we approve, if we do feel like we can shift funding around depending on what our needs, and that's including shifting money from planning and administrative costs into services where we believe really makes a difference, we would have that ability to do that as long as we provide HUD the documentation.
Yes, sir, you can do that through amendment, action plan amendments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Anyone?
Mayor, I think Ms. Said would request an action from the council for approval for her submission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion, questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, will you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles? Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Yes. Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, can
Yes,
I
sir.
make a point of personal privilege for just a second? I
You
meant to do it
absolutely
earlier.
can, Mr. Taylor.
Rutherford Foster, will you stand up? Rutherford's is my member of the mayor's intern group. He's sitting in with us today. He's an outstanding student at the University of South Carolina. His parents are Peter and Dean Fawcett, who are very active in our community. Rutherford, thanks for being here with us today, bud.
Welcome, Rut. Rutherford. Short, Rut for short.
Thank you.
Madam City Manager?
Welcome, Rut, was it, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Welcome.
Hey, when you're one of six, they shorten the names.
I understand.
Should have named him Lucky.
Should be lucky.
When you're one of two, you get a nickname. All right, we have our consent agenda items 5 through 21. Mr. Mayor and Council, for your consideration.
There any questions or concerns on the consent agenda? Any council members? I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you read the roll? Ms. Wiley, I just want you for the note for the record, number 12 is getting voted on right now.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I likewise wanted to thank the staff for all the work on the Belvedere item, and then there was a couple other items I think worthy of highlighting items on your agenda for your approval, as you just did. The Rocky Branch and Maxie Gregg Park stormwater projects, I think, are so beneficial. The way our staff is using new strategies to address beautification of our streams and restoration of our stormwater ditches. So I'm really thankful that you all gave approval to those items. Also, the 8 Mile Branch project on your agenda that you just approved have similar elements. Thank y'all so much for giving us the opportunity to get those things done and affect change with drainage in our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add to that. I think the stream issue is a really outstanding program. And there are other areas in the city that we really ought to take a look at that, because not only is it good for the environment, it really improves the appearance of our city. I had mentioned to Mr. Shealy over at Water and Public Works that area down from Jackson Boulevard to Divine Street or Garners Ferry Road would be an outstanding place for us to continue that. I think this one's timely and very well done. Thank you, Clint.
And I'd have to add to that, hopefully the penny tax that's supposed to have money to do that work and supposed to finish that work will complete what they committed to, but we'll keep pressing them.
Thank you all. That, I believe, takes us to item 22, which is our ordinance second reading, ordinance number 2022-020, repealing ordinance number 2019-046, that amended the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 8, Environmental Health and Sanitation, Article 2, Nuisances.
Move approval of ordinance 2022-0-20.
There's a second. Any discussion?
Just briefly, I wanted to make sure I acknowledge the callers. I think what I heard was definitely 2 people from the Greenview community at least. And I'm not sure about the first caller. But again, I would just reiterate what I said at the last meeting. And due to the increased number of gun violence, even just since the first vote that we've had, and I try and tell people I don't need to quote statistics because I hear the gunshots. So those kind of numbers don't really impress me. But I do believe it's incumbent for a council to immediately look at revisiting these statutes or these ordinances and or, again, investing in the community in preventative measures so that we don't even have to deal with all the gun activity. If we invest in our kids, I think that we'll see an automatic decrease in those numbers.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
No.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
No.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving into a period of zoning and planning matters for second reading, I believe Ms. Hampton is here if you have any questions. I know there's some follow-up on a few items. Item 23 is an annexation, the comprehensive plan map amendment and zoning map amendment for 1458 Carolina Road, also known as 1458 Trinity 3 Road.
Is there anybody here who's in support or against the second reading? Any questions or discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I think outcome from the last meeting was more neighborhood conversations, just to confirm that that did happen, Krista?
Yes, sir, it did. They met on the 24th and reported a favorable outcome.
Wonderful, thank you.
Move for approval.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles? Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 24, zoning text amendment to amend Chapter 17, Appendix D, for historic sub-district boundaries in Earlwood Protection Area, Area A, to add 1010 Edgefield Street.
Yes, Ms. Hampton, can you give us an update? I think we were looking for, there were some transitions, owners, new owners, people hadn't bought. Could you?
Yes, sir. They had actually closed on the property at the time, and in your information was a letter from the property owners acknowledging the historic district, and they are actually under construction.
Is it, any discussion from council? Anybody here to favor or
Thank you
against?
for getting that letter, and I move for approval.
Have a motion?
Second.
There no discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ordinances first reading. Item 25 is ordinance number 2022-021, approval for conveyance of Falling Spring Court, identified as Richland County TMS number as outlined to Deliverance and Revival Center Church.
Is there anybody here? This is our first reading of an ordinance. Is there anybody here to support or is against? Any discussion by council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move for approval.
I have a motion for approval. Can I get a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, if you could read the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Zoning and Planning Matters, first reading, item 26, an annexation interim comprehensive plan map amendment and interim zoning map amendment for 1.229 acre portion of 181 Newland Road.
Is there anybody here in support or against this annexation? Is there any discussion from council? No questions, comments, or concerns? May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan? Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you. Item, my agendas, bear with me, are not in the right order. 27, annexation, interim comprehensive plan map amendment and interim zoning map amendment for 28.24 acres, Riding Grove Road, and .07 acres, Riding Grove Road.
Is there anybody here to speak in favor or against this annexation? Any questions or discussions or concerns from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make the motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? We have a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
A resolution, item 28, resolution number R 2022-026, approval for release and abandonment of City of Columbia sewer easements for CIP project number SS 7261 in Lake Catherine, the sewer line capacity enhancement project.
Is there a motion?
Make the motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, concerns, questions? Mr. Duval?
I'm assuming we're on item 28 with the easements.
We are.
Does that mean that we have finished the Lake Catherine thing? Can we get a report on, by releasing these easements, I assume that it means that we finished the big project around Lake Catherine?
It's definitely moving forward. I'll let Clint respond further if necessary. I don't want to commit to totally finish, Mr. Duval, but let him.
Yes, sir, we have finished, and if we had not completed that work on a day like today, we wouldn't be containing sanitary sewer in the pipe. So very, very positive accomplishment for our team.
Is it finished all the way across Divine Street into down Gills Creek?
The laying of the pipe is finished. There's a little bit of miscellaneous restoration work that's still occurring, but punch list type items, but we're essentially done.
Good.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Shealy while he's here? Seeing none, hearing none. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Event resolutions, item 29, resolution number R 2022-025, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only within Boyd Plaza adjacent to the Columbia Museum of Art for the Art Blossom fundraiser on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, Friday, May 6th, Saturday, May 7th, and
Move for
Sunday.
approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions, concerns? Not hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Item 30 is resolution number R 2022-027, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only in Founders Park, 431 Williams Street at pregame block parties on Saturday, April 9th and 16th of 2022.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, concerns, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 31 is resolution number R 2022-029, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only within the 1400 block of Main Street, the eastern half block of the 1100 block of Hampton Street, adjacent to Boyd Plaza, and Boyd Plaza adjacent to Boyd Plaza at the Jam Room Music Festival on, I think the amended change in the date is to October 1st, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussions, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, hearing none. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Appointments, Mayor Rickaman and Council is being asked to approve the appointment of Mr. Billy Canty to the Tax Modernization Committee as requested by the Honorable Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any questions, concerns? Not hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
I just had one question.
Yes,
I just wanted to confirm, because this is a mayor appointment, correct?
it is.
Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm.
The number of persons on that committee.
It's limited to 7.
Seven. Mr. Canty is 7 person. So he's number 7.
Yep. No more vacancies on this committee. Ready for the roll? Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Other matters, item 33, council is asked to approve the installation of a four-way stop control at the intersection of Red Bay Road and Cooper's Nursery Road as requested by the Wood Creek Farms Homeowners Association.
I'm putting new business.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, I do not have a formal city manager's report today, but I did want to bring to your attention some great news regarding our police department. They have maintained their national accreditation by CALEA. This past week, Chief Holbrook and his team traveled to endure a pretty thorough hearing, I'm told, and came out on top. The Columbia Police Department was awarded national accreditation or reaccreditation on April 2nd, 2022 by the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, Inc., CALEA, in the Law Enforcement Accreditation Program. And of course, CPD was first accredited in 2017 since Chief Holbrook came to join us. And the department certainly demonstrates compliance across a number of areas. That is what accreditation ensures. There's approximately 460 national standards that they must adhere to, and the benefits to our community of accreditation include greater accountability within the agency. It increases community advocacy, improved employee morale, staunch support from government officials like yourselves, controlled liability insurance costs, and stronger defense against lawsuits and citizen complaints. And so I'm very, very thankful that they went through the process again and that they were reaccredited. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention and to the attention of our community.
Chief, you want to say a few words? He's got his dress whites on today.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Ms. Wolfen, thank you for bringing that to our council's attention. We are very, very proud to maintain this status, this recognition. It is not easily done. We have a staff that's committed to this every year now. We're going through reviews, so when we hit that 4th year, it's a little bit of an easier lift, but it causes us to have to go through these reviews every single year. And again, you know, over 400 standards, it raises the bar for us. It does hold us accountable. And I was sharing with the commission this last weekend, there's no question in my mind as we move through some of the most challenging times in the history of our city and our department and law enforcement in general. I think how we have embraced the 6 pillars of 21st century policing and renewed our commitment to these national standards, I think helped us show our commitment to our community, our accountability piece to the community, and that we do hold ourselves accountable and we maintain that professional excellence that they expect from us.
Thank you, Chief. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that brings you and the council to a period of committee referrals, reports, and new business.
If y'all don't mind, I'll go ahead and start. I just wanted to hit a couple things on the new business side. First of all, very excited the work is beginning on our task force to prevent and end homelessness, chaired by Dr. Bustles, as well as the expansion and continuing of our tax modernization committee, chaired by Councilman Taylor. Both of these committees need help with research and assistance by individuals who are engaged in their expertise in respective areas. So the following professional service agreements have been requested and are well below the dollar amount for the city's authorization, but feeling that it's very important for us as a council to give the manager a vote to move forward with that, but also for the public to understand what we're doing. And the first one is for the task force to prevent and end homelessness is to approve a $10,000 engagement to produce relevant homeless social service data, recommendations, and collaboration model to support efficiencies to reduce the homeless population in Columbia and Richland County. This will be done by Tracy Dobbins of Inspire Real Change. The second is for the Tax Modernization Committee. Dr. Stephen Walters, our economist, is requesting $2,705 for his economic advising service, present options recommended plan that lowers a 6% assessed property tax without increasing other taxes and fees, and details for the community stands relative to the Midlands County, state, and the Southeast. The second part to that is Dr. Rebecca Gunlogson, who has a $6,000 economic advising to work along with Dr. Walters here at the local level to do that. And the last part is Charles Torini of Torini Law Firm for the legal advising services, retain agreement through the city attorney's office in the amount of $4,500. So roughly we're about, we originally thought this would be somewhere around $20,000, and we're a little under $13,000 for those combined contracts. Are there any questions, concerns?
I couldn't help but pick up on the attorney. Is that just a retainer, or is that the full?
It's a retainer agreement through that, so that covers their costs projected for this project. Any other questions, concerns? I would ask that we take a vote in support of this to allow the city manager to move forward on those. That's, my motion is to approve these 4 contracts. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye. Yes, sir.
Just a real personal privilege. I think we're on the right track towards, again, identifying this whole issue of homelessness. I think our modernization tax committee, I think that has sort of formed itself in a way that is going to not only be beneficial to this city, but for every community that's out there. So the dollar amounts that are out there, we've had a discussion, a very vivid discussion about spending money, and of course where it's going and how it's going. And of course I think in so raising the issue with our homeless situation and with our tax modernization task force, that is really giving us a real opportunity to make sure that our dollars are spent in a very wise and concretized way. So thank you guys for doing that. We got a 6-month deal with our homeless, and of course our taxes and death will always be with us, and we would hope that our tax task force will help us. We've got some good players on that task force, some good players to eliminate and downsize our taxes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
With that, we'll move to any committee referrals or reports.
I have a committee meeting for the Administrative Policy Committee designated for April
19th?
19th. to look at two particular issues. One being brought to the forefront from last year, and of course, the equity report and a reviewing of that report.
Robert, did you have something?
And I'm sorry, which committee?
Administrative.
Administrative policy.
Because we made a referral last week, right? To that same committee?
Administrative policy.
Yes, sir.
What was that, Erica?
To
Ms. Hammond.
review requests that are requests for research or requests to pull together information from city council members to staff, just looking at whether or not a policy is needed around that matter. You remember that?
So you have 3 things, that's all.
And I believe you may have a total of 4. I think you may have to schedule a subsequent meeting because with it being an hour, he may not have enough time to address all of it, but we'll make sure that all of the items are scheduled.
Mr. McDowell said that, he has signed up for public service, and he'll be there as long as it takes to get things done.
Yes,
So don't you
sir.
worry about that, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And my mayor also signed up for public service, so thank you so much.
And he's
Mr. Mayor.
there every day.
Thank you.
It is, Tina, thank you very much, Ms. Herbert. We identified 2, but there are 3.
There's actually 4.
Are there any more issues? Let's all get them out right now while we're here.
I'll put them to the top of your emails. I'll
Thank
make
you
sure
very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Taylor, did you want to give us a report on the COG?
No, it was in your package. No need to
Okay.
do that. I would add, since, the Tax Modernization Committee is scheduled for Thursday, the 14th, and the Economic and Community Development meeting is also scheduled for the afternoon of the 14th.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other reports or referrals? Hearing none, seeing none, we're at that stage where there's public input. Do we have anybody that signed up?
Yes, sir. We have 3 individuals signed up. The first one being Rami Alawar. Excuse me if I butchered your name.
Good evening.
Good
evening. I am here to talk about the fence and the water fountain at Finley Park. So basically, as a student at USC and as a resident of Columbia, Finley Park has been a place where myself and many other USC students would have went to, play Frisbee, do various activities, go out there and hang out, take girls on dates, do many different things. And it's been the canopy's been fenced off for about a year now. That's a place that many of us would go whenever it was hot at the summertime, and you don't want to get cooked out there for half an hour, so you need to go somewhere for shade. And the water fountains don't work, so we can't even refill a water bottle, when you get thirsty. So it doesn't make sense that you can't use a park during the spring or summertime. So basically, what I'm proposing is that we get rid of the fence and get some running water in the water fountains, because, even prisons have water. So, yeah, I've talked to many people at USC, many students such as myself, people in the neighborhood, and they also share this concern. The thing is, many of them couldn't be here today because these meetings are held at 4 p.m. on a workday. So, that's another concern on its own, I guess we could address. But yeah, the main concern is we want access to the entire park that we pay for with our tax dollars. We want access to drinking water at a public park. We want access to shade. That's basically all. I think I did some research, actually. Some of the reasons I heard about the water fountain, at least, was that it was COVID related. I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but we've changed some COVID related policies. Obviously in the city, none of us here are wearing masks for the most part. So I'd say that we should stay consistent with the COVID policy and allow ourselves to have the water fountains and also the canopy.
Sir, thank you. As you know, we're in the middle of redesigning Finley Park for a total overhaul. And, But we will look into, I don't know about the water fountain, I can't answer that question, but we'll make sure that staff address it. I know that the reason why the stage, which is what you're referring to, is fenced off, part of that is because part of it's dilapidated and the other is that there were a lot of illegal activities occurring down there on a constant basis under that. So what we can do is look at what alternatives we can provide for those who'd like to use the park and try to see if we can come up with a nice balance for you.
May I say one?
Sure.
Thing? Yes, so I heard about the renovations. That was about a year ago. So we were there, waiting about 3 months, and we were like, we don't know how long these things take. All right, it's been 3 months. We'll wait some more. We waited 6 months. I mean, we were thinking, all right, they better do something soon, because I feel like it doesn't take 6 months to start renovating.
Takes almost a year to do the schematics and designs.
The thing is, could we have access to the park until that starts, right?
Right.
I mean, it's been a year. I mean, I don't know why it was fenced off for a whole year, right? Until renovations actually start, I think we should have access to the whole park that we pay for. And on top of that, as far as illegal activities, well, I mean, illegal activities happen all over the street corners and everywhere, but you don't fence those off. So, I mean, what I'm saying is that we deserve full access to the park that we pay for regardless, because illegal activities happen all over Columbia, and we're not fencing off like any bus stops or anything like that, so.
Well, that was only one part of what I said. So I said there's also damage in there, and it's not a public, it's not inhabitable at this point. So we'll have to see what we can do to provide better access and shade for that. We will look into the water, sir. And just for the record, could you state your address as well?
Yeah, I wrote it down on the piece of paper.
Okay, thanks. We put it online so that we all have it on the verbal record. But we will look into those issues for you, sir.
All right.
Mayor, the address listed is 3027 Lindsay Street. Next, we have Ms. Jacqueline Sodowitz.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Mayor, Council. I'm also rising to speak about Finley Park. I have lived in Lexington for my whole life, during which time me and my family have been to probably every park in the city. We always would go and have picnics, have family days, do activities with the extended family. We have such beautiful land around here. That all stopped with COVID. We all took shelter, we all played our part, and now that we're getting back to normal, we decided to go back to Finley Park and try to have a picnic there. We were dismayed that we couldn't sit under the, what is it you call it, the stage or the?
It's the stage, yes, ma'am.
So we ended up, it was okay. We brought a blanket, we sat on the grass, it was nice. I have many friends with children, they were running around, and when they went to get water, like he mentioned at the water fountains, they don't work. I was just dismayed to see our public parks in such poor repair. My hope is that if the reason that this area is fenced off and the water fountains don't currently work is because of renovations that are being done, my hope is that they do begin soon so we can start to enjoy the public park that we all pay for.
We'll look into like I said, we'll look into the water fountain. I did not know that they are off. We are in schematic design right now. We hope to have that finished by the end of the year so that we can start a really good picture of what it's going to look like and the amenities online. It's worth taking a look at because I think you'll be really happy with the end result when we get there. But we see what we can do to make it a little more enjoyable in between. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Finally, Mayor, we have Mr. John Black.
Mr. Black speaks. Just very quickly, I'd like to take a point and just acknowledge two young people that came at 4 p.m. to testify. I know that it's hard and I know it's a working day. And for the record, we definitely moved it from 2 to 4, and maybe next year we could move it a little bit later. I hear you, and I appreciate you being a part of the process as young people whose lives are affected by the decisions that we make. So thank you for being here.
It's your time.
Hello. So I want to point out that, again, that the Columbia Council of Neighborhoods is having our annual awards banquet next Wednesday. I wanted to announce one thing, too, as 2 city employees are being inducted into our Hall of Fame, including one here today, Miss Veronica Walker from Public Relations. In addition to Ms. Charmaine Clark with Community Development, who is not here today. So I wanted to just kind of name out the Neighborhood Volunteer of the Year nominees. We have Regina Williams from Booker Washington Heights, Michelle Huggins from South Kilbourne, Kelly Hines Morris of Shandon, Jerry Parker of Galaxy, Ian Hamilton of Historic Melrose, Trey Turner of Galaxy, Norman and Donna Goldberg of Belvedere, and Willie Fuller of Northwood Hills. Those are our Neighborhood Volunteers of the Year nominees. And for Neighborhood of the Year, we have the Shandon Neighborhood Council, the South Kilbourne Neighborhood Association, and the South Meadowfield Neighborhood Association. I want to say that ticket sales are ongoing now. Tables of 6 are $225. Individual tickets are $40. Thank you to Councilwoman Herbert for her contribution to make sure that this is a successful event to celebrate our citizens of Columbia. And that's all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. We're good. Howard?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we go into executive session for discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangement pursuant to SC Code 30-4-78-2, executive management and leasing, Convention Center, and Evergreen.
Motion? There's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
No.
No?
Keep going, Erica, keep going.
Ms. Herbert?
Yes.
Dr. Brussels?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.